I joined BRS Golf as Ireland sales manager. The generation shift has changed, and I don't believe that golf clubs have moved with that generation. I know it doesn't seem like the most glamorous of topics. I mean, people go health and safety, oh no, not that. I want people to go, oh no, not that, because we can come in and make it easy.
Hi, I'm Graham.
My two greatest passions in this life are golf and technology. Luckily, my jobs at the minute intersect both of these, as I caddy at Kingsbarns golf links in Scotland during the day, and at night, myself and a team of golfers are working on an app called Handicaddie, which is helping golf clubs schedule caddy jobs at the click of a button. While we're on a mission to change the caddying industry, I want to speak to as many cool people creating exciting projects within the game of golf. I really believe the future of the golf industry is bright, and this is the Future of Golf podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Future of Golf podcast. I'm delighted to be joined today by another fellow Northern Irish golfer and tech enthusiast, Ryan Bell. Ryan, great to have you on the podcast. How are you keeping today, my friend?
I'm really good. Thanks for the invite. It's an absolute joy to come on and have a chat about golf and tech.
Two of my biggest passions as well. And so I've known Ryan, how long? Probably for the past year and a half, we've sort of kept in contact. And obviously seeing the journey of your startup and what you've joined at Obbi Golf, and even giving me bits of advice to work on my startup as well. It's been great to see your rise and what you've been working on. But maybe taking it back just from Obbi from the start, do you want to maybe introduce yourself and then maybe talk about how you actually got into the golf industry yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Graham. So at the minute, I'm senior account manager for Obbi Golf, which is a health and safety and task management and compliance platform specifically made for golf clubs, which allows them to basically have all staff SOPs, risk assessments, training across all departments, and task management. So it's a one-stop shop that allows golf clubs to mitigate risk, but also ensure that their staff are completely empowered and comfortable in the job role that they're doing. So we work incredibly hard across all areas of the UK and Ireland. We've got some fantastic customers such as Loch Lomond, Roehampton Club, Royal Portrush, one up near in your neck of the woods, Royal Belfast, Royal Dublin. So that's fantastic. I mean, how I got into the golf industry, I mean, I have been in sales all my life. I've been fortunate enough to work for some fantastic companies, the likes of Deal Farm, Heineken, FedEx. I was in the coffee industry for many, many years, and I joined BRS Golf as Ireland sales manager in 2016, and that was my first foray into golf software. There probably wasn't a better place to start because obviously I'm sure many people who watch this podcast are familiar with BRS and the sort of scope of the business across that and the Golf Now side of things. So I joined them and I took on the Ireland market. There's about 320 clubs in that market, and I was at that stage selling the BRS system, the Golf Now platform, tee-off times, which they had recently acquired from Golf Breaks, and then some other systems over the years developed, such as their payment plans and finance for golf clubs. That was how I got into the golf industry, and it was a fantastic start.
And I was looking up, you seem to be a pretty handy golfer yourself. What's the handicap sitting at now?
Yeah, it's at an all-time low, but that might just be because the handicap system makes everything look better than it really is. So it's not 0.1 at the minute. So I finally took my foray into scratch. Whether I am a scratch golfer, I don't know if I can actually say that I am, but I would say I'm a decent 2, man.
Yeah, that's false modesty there. I'm sure you're shooting the lights out every time you go out. That's interesting that you've sort of always been in the sales side of golf. Was there anything particularly about sales that appealed to you and maybe prompted you to get into it?
Yeah, I mean, like probably a lot of young guys and girls coming out of university. Maybe you're not 100% sure what you want to do. I mean, I did English at Queen's, which really, in theory, should take you down the path of maybe doing teaching, but it wasn't something that I fancied. I took a brief foray into journalism and worked in the Irish News briefly, covering the local soccer, which was great, but I didn't feel like it was where my passion was. And I did a post-grad scheme through a company that's no longer around called Parity, and they put you through training in business, and at the end of it, you got a placement. And I did sales and marketing, and I ended up in Dale Farm for 3 months. And then they gave me a bit of exposure to both sales and marketing. And then at the end, they said, "Look, we'd like to keep you on. What do you prefer out of the two?" And I just sort of fell in love with sales. And at that stage, we're going back to the days where I was basically going out with Spelga and Dramona and Suki and all the things that people really love to drink and eat in terms of cheese and orange juice. And I used to work with the Tesco's and the Sainsbury's and the Spars and sell those products into them. And I just fell in love with sales and sort of took it from there.
Yep. And I suppose there's a bit of a contrast there between the selling the physical products that you did to the likes of, your Tesco's, to actually now your career being selling a software, not necessarily like a physically tangible product. So is there anything different? Obviously, your love for golf, I'm sure, shines through in the sales process, but do you approach that differently when you're selling software as opposed to a physical product?
I really don't. I mean, the biggest thing that comes with sales is relationships. I mean, even if I went back to those days, I mean, I would always aim to build up the strongest possible relationships with the contacts that I would work in, whether it would be somebody who owned a Spar store or Super Value store, and nowadays it's general managers of golf clubs. And there's a lot of relationships that I've built up over the last 16, 17 years of people that I could pick up the phone to now and still talk to them like they're good friends. And I think that's the thing about sales, is you have the opportunity to create some really lasting friendships by looking after people and providing them with something that can really help their job.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point. It's almost looking at not selling as trying to push a product down someone's mouth, but actually as a way to help them fulfill their own goals as well. And we were just chatting before the podcast. I think Obbi does a great job as far as social media, almost making champions of the users and highlighting the work that has to go into actually getting set up with the platform and rewarding people for doing so. I'd be curious. Obviously, Obbi Golf, we were chatting there, has now a team of 12, I believe,
Yep.
and has obviously went from strength to strength in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. Do you want to maybe take me back to the start of the journey, whenever Gareth had sort of contacted you about coming on? What stage was the business at then, and how did you sort of originally get involved?
Yeah, I mean, so Gareth had given me a ring. I was working for another local software company, really fantastic company called Pitch Booking, and I really enjoyed working there. They're doing some great things. But Gareth gave me a ring and he said, "Look," and I had been talking to a couple of other people in the software industry who said, "Look, there is this product coming into the golf market which is pretty good." So I went to meet Gareth, and obviously Gareth's background, he is an operator. He owns the Malone Hotel in Belfast and 6 care homes in Northern Ireland. Which when I went to the hotel, it had been renovated and looked fantastic since the last time I was in it. And we sat down and we talked about what I had done with BRS. And then when he showed me the software, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's T-Sheets, revenue management, Caddy Master systems. The question is it going to make the operator's life easier? Is it going to streamline their processes? And is it going to give them visibility of what they need to see at the click of a button? And when I saw the system, I just automatically knew, well, for a start in the golf industry, golf managers are not lucky enough to have health and safety officers. They don't have specific teams to deal with risk assessments, SOPs, pre-use checks, all the things that go with it, fire extinguishers. So I saw a huge gap in the market. And to answer your question on what he had at that stage, he had basically four test clubs in the north of Ireland, and that basically was the basis of where we wanted to start. We joined the GCMA and the CMAE. We went to a couple of the trade shows, and then from the 1st of January this year, we went to market. And from that point forward, it's really sort of exploded. Now, the reason it's exploded is because there is a real gap in the market in this section. Don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that there isn't a couple of other players in the market. There is. But what Obbi does that those other players don't do is we are an end-to-end solution. Every member of the staff in the golf club gets a log into Obbi. It will have all the risk assessments, all their SOPs, all their training, all their documentation, certification, everything on it. And the golf club can then easily manage it to make sure that everybody is safe, and no one else is doing that currently.
Yeah. And it's exciting because Gareth, I think, contacted me at the start of the journey. Obviously, he knew I was pretty well connected in the North Coast just to see if I could put him onto a few clubs. But it seems to have happened really quickly. As you say, you've only launched in January, and we're talking before, you've got clubs pretty much throughout the UK. Um, what what do you think? Obviously, the reason behind it, you've got a great team, but is there any particular factor that you could sort of relate that success to? Is it just executing pretty well on a plan, or is it mostly just the gap in the market, as you said?
It's a combination of both. I mean, look, there's some great software out there in all types of golf that looks amazing, but the functionality is not brilliant. What I was sold on was the absolute beauty and ease of use of the functionality of the system. I've seen a lot of softwares over the last few years, and this one end to end is probably the easiest you could ever use. And it has to be, because this isn't just the general manager using this. This could be the junior greenkeeper or the junior bar staff, and they need to be able to pick up something and go, yeah, I can use this straight away. Or maybe you might have somebody in your staff who's slightly older, who's maybe a little scared of technology. So that played a big part. The gap in the market is absolutely huge for it. But I think more than anything, I mean, as a team, we are really, really passionate about changing the culture of the way health and safety is looked at. I know it doesn't seem like the most glamorous of topics. I mean, people go health and safety, oh, no, not that. I want people to go, oh, no, not that, because we can come in and make it easy.
Yeah. And it shows, it's almost like something that people are trying to avoid and push out. They think such a tedious task to go through every single minute detail of the business and see how we're compliant. But it's become more important as there's been more legal issues. I've been aware of plenty, even around Scotland, since I've moved across to St Andrews, and it only takes one thing, and then legal firms will pretty much hone in on it because they know there's an opportunity to get something out of golf clubs that aren't compliant, and they'll start seeing patterns. Um, it's also interesting because I mean I've known Gareth since going back to the Invent competition in I think it was 2018 or 2019. We were pretty much sat on opposite tables when we were in the final of that, and that was just with Obbi Solutions, which was a general HR compliance app. Um, at what point did he sort of decide that there was an opportunity in golf clubs, and how did he identify that? I'd be really interested to hear about.
Well, it was actually quite interesting because the product had gone quite well in the non-golf sector. As you say, golf wasn't even thought about at that stage. It had launched in manufacturing and hospitality, which is obviously Gareth's background. But obviously COVID put a bit of the skids on that and stopped things for everybody. And during one of his conversations with one of the manufacturers, they said to him, "Look, have you thought about golf clubs here? Because it's not an industry where you have that sort of professional to help you go through all these health and safety issues." So he started to talk to some of the really important players in the golf market and sort of inquire about this, and sort of obviously then I've come on board and I've got what I like to think is a pretty strong knowledge of the way that general managers think about software. And yeah, I knew immediately there was a gap for it because I spent most of my days talking about revenue management and T-sheet management and dynamic pricing and all the things that you want to generate money. But when you generate that money, you can give it away twice as quickly by somebody who cuts their finger off on your premises.
Exactly. It just takes one guy in the kitchen cutting carrots just to whack on off, and that's it. That's it. Um, but yeah, no, it's obviously been a really quick rise. I'd be interested to hear more about, I guess, your journey personally. As far as what drew you to golf, even going way back at the start. Like when did you start picking up a club?
I actually started playing golf when I was about 5 years old. My dad played at the golf club, and he used to take me out and play, and we used to go on holiday and play, and we both played very, very fast. He had a very strict rule with me. He said, "Ryan, I want you to go up to your shot. I want you to take one practice swing. I want you to hit it, and I want you to run back to the buggy." And unfortunately, even at 39 years old, I'm still doing that. So anyone who plays with me, get ready to play in 2.5 hours, because that's pretty much how I can do 18 holes.
Oh, I love the sound of that. Like cat as a caddy, our worst nightmare is we'll get held up and have 5.5 hours, 6 hour rounds. So you'd be the dream man to caddy for.
No, it'd be fun.
Um,
I mean, for me, golf was never my major sport. I mean, I was fortunate enough to play cricket for Ireland all the way up through the youth levels, and I played badminton for Ulster and Ireland up through the youth levels as well. So I only played golf until serious. Well, I played at a junior level until I was 18, and I never got any lower than 12. And then I played cricket and badminton pretty much non-stop until about 26 when I really hurt my back and I had to retire from both sports. So I decided, look, I can play golf because it's a repeatable action, and I've come back to it, and I really just fell in love with the game. And then when the opportunity came to work in the industry with BRS, at that stage, golf was all I was playing, and it was a dream come true. I mean, the things that I got to do when I was with BRS, play in Irish Open Pro-Ams. I was lucky enough to play with Jamie Donaldson and JB Hansen and Shubanker Shumar, and those sort of experiences you'll never forget. And also working with such incredible software has given me a really good knowledge of what a good software platform looks like, which is something that if you asked me in 2014, I wouldn't have had a clue.
yeah, and it's really cool. Obviously, you've had experience with, a solidified, solid software platform that had, got a lot of the market by 2016. Like, I had chats with Rory, the founder of BRS, and just heard about his early journey. And it was so, like, he talked me through like the original, Beaver Park, just building sort of a bespoke solution for them, and then going to Glass and getting the first customers. It seems to be just really treating those first 10 customers like they're god, and almost just doing anything and everything just to make sure it's a brilliant experience for them. I'd be interested to find out, how do you think it contrasts between working with the likes of BRS, who had already, established themselves, to then being the disruptor and starting to break into the market? Is there any differences in that role?
Yeah, there is, and ironically, there's a lot of synergy in the previous sales roles that I did as a younger man. So, if you're with Dale Farm or Heineken, you have massive product that everybody knows, and walking in the door, people will listen to you. But then I moved to a startup coffee company called 38 Espresso in 2010, and I spent 6 years there, and that was a startup. I'm talking, there was 13 customers when I joined, and nobody knew who you were. So you're knocking doors and you say the name, and people go, I've never heard of them. So
Yeah.
here we are now, been with BRS. Everybody knew who that was. And yes, that did open a lot of doors. It doesn't automatically sell products, but it certainly gives you a helping hand. And nowadays, I'm with Obbi Golf, and certainly for the, start of the year, really nobody had any idea who we were, with good reason. But now people are starting to say, yeah, I know that name. So yeah, it does come with its own challenges. Anyone who works in sales, I would advise them, you need to spend time in a startup. You have to have a portfolio that no one knows, because it will grossly improve your selling skill anywhere that you go.
Hmm. And I think we had quite an interesting debate on LinkedIn a few months back, basically about that topic, and actually the almost disregard that some golf clubs might give to a startup. And regardless of how good your product is, if you don't have that reputation, they'll almost disregard it. And that's backed up by what you said before the podcast about, clubs starting to come to you after maybe ignoring those first emails. Um, I guess the question there is, how do you sort of change someone's image? Is it just repeated, keeping people up to date, keeping active in your social media platforms? Is there any particular strategy that you actually use to get more customers?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, the early customers that you get, you may have to give a little, in the very early days of your startup, because, people maybe not going to trust what you're selling. They may think, look, is this software going to be good enough? If you can give a little at that point, then work really closely with those customers to identify, what best practice looks like, give them fantastic service. And then once you have them up and running and they're really happy with what you're doing, take testimonials from them and have them talk to people in the industry they know and say, look, we've worked with this team, they're providing a great product, and look, I would recommend that you talk to them.
Yeah, and as you say, it's all about social proof. Actually, golf clubs seeing one another's working with it and saying, this really is making my life more helpful. And like, the Irish golf industry is so close knitted that clubs inevitably talk to clubs. We're quite isolated. That sense, being an island, people are obviously going to share
Yep.
practices. And it goes back to those first 10 customers. If you can get them to love your product, then it makes the job seemingly a lot easier if you can get them to love it.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, look, the way I look at it is every startup needs a little bit of luck. So you need something to go your way early doors. But it's amazing how quickly things can accelerate, because it doesn't actually, and certainly in the island of Ireland, as you and I both know, things can accelerate really quickly. They're a very close-knit community of general managers, as they are in the UK, but I know the Irish market better. And literally, you could talk to somebody on a Monday, and on Friday somebody could give you a call and say, look, I was speaking to so and so, and they said, look, this is worth looking at. So and here, my advice to anyone who does sales: get used to people saying no, get used to people ignoring you, get used to getting the door shut in your face virtually these days. That only makes you better at what you do, because you might have to be more creative, you might have to be more persistent. You can't give up, because like in all my sales life, you could go 2 weeks where nothing happens. Everything you try fails. No one talks to you, and then all of a sudden you get 3 contracts in a day. That is how it goes.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that in any pursuit of life, really, whether it be business or anything really. If you're learning a skill or starting something new, there's almost this wave of momentum, and you can go up and down. There'll be peaks and troughs, and as you say, there can be one day where you just hit the jackpot and you get absolutely everything happens, and then you do 2 weeks where you're consistently working towards it and nothing happens. My question is, how do you maintain the motivation? And I guess this is advice maybe for people in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be golf. Maybe it is golf if you're going through a bad patch of playing yourself. But how do you keep at it whenever it's those lull periods of not much activity?
Yeah, so that's a really, really, really good question. It's probably one of the best questions I've been asked in a long time, and it's something I think about on a daily basis, because I've always been a face-to-face person. Okay, all my life I've worked on the road, never worked in an office. I've always been face-to-face, and now we live in a much more virtual world. And while I do still get out to see clubs face-to-face, nowhere near as often as I used to. And when you're not getting a lot of activity virtually, and you're not getting a lot of responses to email, sitting in the house can be quite lonely, and it can be quite tough. But you have to remember what the end goal is, and you have to, as long as you believe in what you're selling and you believe in the product that you're promoting, then you just got to stick at it. But you have to be creative. You have to look at different avenues. If you've got existing customers, then utilize what they have and what they know and who they know, because that's probably your best protocol to start with. In terms of your prospecting, vary it. Talk to some people on LinkedIn, talk to them via email, pick up the phone, different prongs of attacks, and also think about what those people are looking for. So research heavily. What have they got on their website? What are they using at the minute? Those are the sort of things that you need to do. How to stay motivated? Look, any salesperson will tell you, you get one contract, you turn up to work the next day, absolutely raring to go. And then you might get a
Yeah.
lull for a bit. It's just peaks and troughs, and you either love it or you hate it. And if you love it, you just keep persisting.
Yeah, I think this has turned into a bit of a therapy session for me, right? It's like, I need to remember that there's actually an audience that is going to be watching this as well. Um, but yeah, so definitely going back to that point about actually getting out and going to see golf
Yep.
clubs, I find that the most rewarding part. I remember we went down to County Down. This was probably last year to show the team there, and they're still not on the platform yet, but they're certainly on the fringes of using it. And seeing their team actually sit down and go, "Geez, this actually could be really helpful," and doing it in person as well. And you can see the buzz that it creates for your team as well, because like you've software guys slogging away for weeks and months on end with no return for their work, and then they see the benefit that it provides, and it's such a rewarding moment. Have you had any of those, meetings with clubs when you've actually got down to them, and it's give you that like light bulb to say, "Gee, we're really onto something here."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple spring to mind. Bit like yourself, Clontarf. I've been down to see Clontarf a couple of times. I've met with their committee, and it's great when you get a lot of different types of employees into a meeting where they're all doing different things, and they see the software and how it can help them. Look, as much as I don't mind doing things virtually, when you have people in a room and you can interact and have a discussion about how the software that you provide can help their job individually, then there's a lot to be said for that, because on virtual people can talk over each other. You're trying to time when people are speaking and when they're not, and when you're face to face with somebody, you can have an individual conversation in a group setting.
Mm. And it's also for those first customers making the effort to actually go and drive down and create a relationship, going back to that point of the relationship is the key bit. The product is a factor, but people buy off people, so it's creating that first relationship, and I think it's something you've done very well. Taking it back a little bit from your software, Ryan, and obviously your point, is there anything that you see in the golf industry at the minute that is an opportunity for change? So whether it be on the professional tour, software, the way, maybe the format of the game, is there anything that stands out to you that you see might change within the next sort of 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to software, there's the common one that I spent years talking about, and general managers still talk to me about, even though I'm not specifically in that space anymore, and that is an all-in-one system for a golf club when it comes to EPOS, tee time management, revenue management, hotel management, where you can book your hotel room and it connects to the tee sheet, and you can take your food payments. And I know there are a lot of companies out there that are having a go at it, but nobody seems to have really nailed it yet. And I guess I'm not really sure how that's never happened, because if you walk into a hotel and golf resort and you have a platform that can cater for them from top to tail, you will clean up. There's just no ways about it. Problem is, a lot of these systems have great aspects. So some of them will have a fantastic tee sheet, but not have a great interface for the EPOS. Some of them, will have an absolutely unbelievable food and beverage side, but the visitor experience for booking a golf time is really poor. So yeah, I still think that the all-in-one system from a resort point of view is the holy grail, which no one has captured.
Yeah. I think it's hard because you almost have like pods of companies, like tech, myself and yourself, for example. We're taking two different elements of the golf club and trying to make good systems. But as you say, if that fed into one, that would be absolutely ideal. Maybe we team up and maybe have a crack at it in 5 or 10 years time. Get the two of
Absolutely.
us.
I mean, I can't write any code, so you can leave that to
I
you.
can connect, but we'll leave that to smart guys in the background.
The other thing, in terms of where golf clubs are going, I mean, look, right now, golf clubs are enjoying a real boom in membership post COVID. People have decided they want to get out and enjoy fresh air, and golf looks like a great idea, and that's fantastic. I've seen it at my own golf club. My only concern is that we've seen these booms before, and at the minute, golf clubs are riding on the crest of a wave of membership. They're riding on the crest of a wave of visitor bookings, and while that might be fine if you're a really top links club that can bring in lots and lots of visitors every year, the local members club, what are you doing to keep your members? What are you doing to engage the modern day generation? This is a real bugbear of mine, because when I grew up, as kids, me and my sister would always be taken down to the golf club by our parents for meals. And the golf club was a real social hub, a place that everyone really got together and had a good time. And obviously the bar prices were a bit cheaper. And, it was just a good social element. I even worked in the bar at Bangor Golf Club for 5 years as a student. And there was late license every weekend. Now, if you go into a general golf club, it is like a hospital waiting room at times. And that is due to the fact that the generation shift has changed. And I don't believe that golf clubs have moved with that generation. They haven't changed their bar layout. They haven't changed their menu. They haven't changed the offers. They also don't really look at what attracts people to coming down and socializing somewhere. So nowadays in golf clubs, you'd be lucky if you get a late license once every 2 months in a golf club, in the UK mainland. I mean, there's just not enough on offer for our generation in golf clubs to make us want to go and eat there.
Hmm. Is it the fact though that is it a lack of effort in their part, or is it the fact that they don't want it to become the social gathering place? Like they still want an element of, I'm paying X amount for membership, I still want my privacy to go and have a private meal. Do you think that's an element of it?
Well, no, I think it's more a case of what are you doing to engage the people who are paying the membership? How can you fill your function room full of your members, whether that be couples who are 21, 22 years old or 60 years old? How can you have that atmosphere that was always around golf clubs in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s? It just isn't there anymore. And I know people are fitter and maybe they're drinking less, but I mean, if you go down to any main street on a Saturday night, the bars and restaurants are pretty full, but the golf clubs aren't.
Yeah, and it's almost an attitude as well. Like, obviously, me and my friends, like growing up in Castle Rock, we would have maybe started at the golf club from the night and then sort of worked our way into other bars, and that for me was always a place where I felt that I could go and socialize with people at the club. But for people who aren't members, they feel like they almost have this image that, oh, this isn't for us. That I'm not allowed in the golf club
Yep. Yep.
for a drink. Whereas, like, you can absolutely be a visitor in many clubs unless they're private clubs. So it's almost breaking that stigma of this private, members only place to actually invite more people.
And it's such a pity because there's so many beautiful golf courses and so many beautiful clubhouses, and they are wonderful places to socialize. And reality, if you're paying £1,000 a year, which is, let's say, the average rate for a membership, it's a facility that you should really use. But I mean, I'm as guilty as anybody. I wouldn't say that there's a massive amount enticing me to go down to my golf club. They do a few offers. They are trying hard. Like, I can't knock that they're not trying. But I mean, the wife isn't turning around to me and go, "Let's go down to the golf club for a meal tonight."
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And it was almost a complete different setup when I went to the US. So I went out to a few country clubs in New Jersey just to sort of see what way that was run. And obviously in America, it's private country clubs where people are paying extortionate fees for that membership. But the usage because of that, it's almost like their turf, their land.
Yeah.
So they might pay $40,000 for membership, but they are getting absolutely everything. Like, they're getting pools, they're getting, they might drive in and they'll get their doors open for them, and then they'll have complimentary food in the restaurant. And it's almost like it was almost like a boys hangout area, and it was like a place where they went during COVID nearly to hang out, which is like, I don't think anything like that really exists in the UK. Like, maybe some of the higher tier clubs in England, but I can't think of anything like that in Ireland. It's very
No,
different.
it's not common. I mean, it's a bit like the sports bars over in the US. I mean, you go into a sports bar and it's a real family environment. You see the parents in there with their kids and all the big screen showing the baseball and the basketball. And it's an incredible environment. I think if you ran that sort of thing over in the UK, it maybe wouldn't quite have the same clientele. It just maybe just doesn't work for the market, which I can understand. But I think golf clubs, I think they have a real opportunity to sort of maximize, bringing people into the club. But what they generally do is they go, right, if you top up your bar card, you get 20% off the alcohol prices. That's not enough to bring people in.
Mm. And yeah, going back to, ultimately, the future of any sport or anything is in its youth. So it's figuring out, how do we get this age bracket of sort of, 16 to 30 to start, participating more in golf club life. I think they do a good job of up to 18. Like, my membership in Castle Rock up to that age was probably shy of £150
Yeah,
for the entire year, and you get two courses. It's an absolute steal. So obviously there's a bit of a tipping point there where it has to be obviously good business for the golf club, but it has to be enticing for the younger people. So we will need to figure out how to get to the sort of the center of that Venn diagram to make it work.
absolutely.
It's not easy. If we had all the solutions, though, we'd be doing them. If we
Yeah,
had
look,
the
I know it's easy to sit back and say this, do that, or et cetera, et cetera. But probably, golf clubs have generally come to the social media party quite late, and at the minute, I mean, like, I don't know a lot about social media. I'm no expert, that's for sure. But, I know that all the youth seem to be using TikTok a lot. But, how many golf clubs actually have a TikTok account? If that's the way to get the young people in the door and playing golf and socializing in the golf club, then use it.
And it's probably a hell of a way to stand out as well, because you can guarantee a club that uses TikTok, it'll be the only one in the area. So people will be like, geez, Roe Park is on TikTok now. What's going on here? And it's that, like, shock factor of not expecting it.
It's a
Probably
big, it's
would.
a big thing. I mean, like, one of the companies out there that I feel do a really good job is Golf Genius with their live leaderboards. I mean, if you're part of a golf club that sort of really goes down the route of promoting the big internal events that you have in the golf club, by putting them up on a live leaderboard, during the day, whether it be a club championship or a captain's day, I think that adds a bit of spice to the whole situation. You get to see who's playing well, who's not playing well, what you need to do. But unfortunately, most golf clubs have some sort of whiteboard that might be in the pro shop, and they're just writing the scores in as you come in. It's not exactly forward thinking.
Yeah, that's what I always find. Like you might have a cracker of a day, and then you have no idea where you stand, and you're waiting online to hear your results. It's yeah, it would be nice to know at the end of your day if you've done something decent.
But it all comes back to software. At the end of the day, we are in a modern day age, and software needs to be embraced across every aspect. And the more you embrace software, the more that you're going to attract the modern day generation who basically just live their life on software.
Hmm. I think that segues nicely, Len, as far as going back to Obi's vision for 5 to 10 years down the line. So, do you guys have like a product roadmap for where you want to see yourself going? Is there like a north star that you're moving towards?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of the development features that are going into the product, the content is being updated all the time. It's actually incredible. I mean, if you wanted to create a video, a training video yourself on your mobile or a tablet at the golf club for something specific, you can then upload it into Obby and have that shared amongst the team for that specific task that somebody does. In terms of where we want to go, I mean, we're Obby Golf at the minute, but I think we all know that Obby Sport as an overall is pretty much sort of the end goal. Obviously, we're already working with some clubs that don't just have golf; they have health clubs and spas and all sorts of things. And we feel like that bracket itself just lends perfectly to it. And then, as you mentioned earlier, Graham, country clubs in America. I think our product just fits that portfolio absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, that I was just gonna bring up like the country club that has everything, the spa, the swimming pool. Like obviously, there's different elements. It's not just a golf club running there. So having one suite to run everything and making sure you're HR compliant could be. Is that sort of where you're going to then? The US
It
would be the
is.
biggest market,
It's
guys.
about investing in staff. So the induction process changes completely with Obby. I mean, when I started in the golf club, probably won't like me saying this, but when I started in my local golf club behind the bar as an 18-year-old, I was handed a shirt and given a handshake and said all the best. I wasn't told, how do you lift this keg? Don't trip over that. Don't pull that electrical cord. But nowadays, with the likes of Obby, basically a week before an employee starts, you can have their contract uploaded. They can view and sign it. They can then look at the employee handbook and acknowledge they've read it. They can look at any training videos that are going to be relevant to their job when they start. And then once they do start, you can have the content automatically populated that they can then do on site. So the staff member automatically thinks, look, you're investing us as a golf club. You're taking me seriously as an employee. You're not just going, look, have a good luck and don't mess up.
Mm. There's definitely something there to be had with caddying as well. And I know Gareth mentioned to me, like caddies themselves, although they're not employees of the golf club, there's certainly an onboarding process that they go through, and especially new caddies, they're not necessarily too aware of what time to show up, what uniforms required, like pace of play, keeping up with the golfers. These are all little things. So it's things we're thinking about as well. Is like how do we make a completely new caddy feel welcome at any golf club around the world, provided
Yeah.
that they have the experience and obviously the ability. Yeah, I think making people just all working as one and having all staff just working together to one beat instead of having spreadsheets everywhere is a massive benefit for sure.
No, it absolutely is. And I mean, even things, to take it back to health and safety with caddying, I mean, a lot of golf clubs in England now have risk assessments for all 18 holes because there might be a lot of blind shots, there might be a lot of slopes, there might be a lot of potential hazards on the golf course. And, my vision, I can see that, a caddy signs up through Handicaddie and then they can automatically view and acknowledge the risk assessment for the golf course. So they know exactly what they expect and they can also advise, any dangerous areas in the golf club to anybody they're caddying for. So, those are important factors. I mean, I'm not going to go into some of the stories, but just to give you an idea, I mean, I've already in the last 2 weeks heard about 3 accidents on golf courses involving blind tee shots, which have resulted in quite large claims. So, these things do happen, and the golf course has to protect the staff working on the golf course and also the visitors.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories about like blind shots, and then in one course in Northern Ireland there's a bell at the top of the hill you have to ring, and obviously it was into the wind. People thought the bell was wrong, and then they were just firing shots in like cannons. Group runs to the top of the hill screaming at them, stop, stop. So stuff like that does happen, and it's we have to be aware of it. But Ryan, that was an absolute pleasure to have you on and hear your insights about the golf industry. Obviously, you've been involved for such a long time, so you bring a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge and a lot of good stories in there as well. Yeah, we'll have to do it again some point once Obbi's taken over the golf HR world. But you're well on the way to do it. So thank you very much for your time.
Look, thanks for having us, Graham. I mean, I'm certainly wishing your product all the best. It's making some fabulous strides. You've made some incredible acquisitions there recently that are only going to set you in good stead to continue to expand the fabulous courses. I mean, your product's set up to sort of deal with the very best of courses, and I think that you're going to do a great job. So anything I can help with going forward and anything Obbi can help, we'd certainly, I know Gareth would be very keen to reach out and help.
Definitely. We'll have to get a little catch up when I'm up in Belfast again. Might be I'll be floating here and back from Scotland. So we'll get
maybe a glass of red wine.
I would never turn it down. Absolutely not. Ryan, yeah, again, thank you very much for your time and good luck with everything going forward.
No problem. Thanks, Graham. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Future of Golf podcast. To make sure you don't miss another one, click subscribe, and to track my personal progress at Handicaddie, check out handicaddie.com and visit our links in our social, all down below.